Andreas Gustafsson, the greatest Marauder to ever touch the sport. He's never taken a single step back in a fight, and technique is a foreign concept he hasn't discovered yet. But why would he want to anyways, when it's for soy boys like Israel Adesanya and Ian Gary?
So I've been wanting to talk about this guy ever since he made his debut in the UFC because Andreas Gustafsson is quite literally the perfect definition of a marauder. This guy lives by the marauder code. This guy fights the way Sean Strickland wishes he fights. This guy fights the way Marauder fans says he fights, and he happens to be from my home country of Sweden. So you already know I gotta glaze this man, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do in this video. I'm not hiding anything, okay? I'm gonna go over his style of fighting, what makes it so exciting and unique, how I think his fight against Rinat Fakhritonov is gonna go, how far he gets in the UFC, as well as a little story at the end. But let's start off with his fighting style. And his fighting style can only be referred to as pure maraudery, okay? I made that word up, but it kind of fits here. This guy literally said that he's the least technical fighter in the UFC, and I love it. As soon as the fight starts, he's just crashing into his opponent with something, bro. Either a big meaty hook or a Viking tackle, it doesn't matter what it is. His main goal is to back you up and clinch you against the fence, and in the clinch, he isn't just trying to hug you, he's actively putting hands on you. And he's not just a clinch striker either, he can take you down and beat the crap out of you too. And there's mainly two reasons to why his clinch game is so strong. First of all, he has a background in Greco-Roman wrestling, and second of all, he's just extremely strong. I'm sure you've seen clips of him just chucking around weights like it's nothing. And listen, I'm no expert when it comes to lifting weights, except in the McGregor way, you know what I'm saying? But even I can tell that's extremely impressive, and I've even heard some whispers that say that Andreas Gustafsson mainly just lifts weights, like he doesn't even train martial arts. Sometimes when he feels like it, he does some sparring at the end of his training sessions, you know? But that's basically it. Now when it comes to his pure stand-up game, it's mainly hands, okay? And I'm gonna be honest, you guys. I agree with him. He's not very technical. He's not exactly a JDM with his boxing. But he can crack, he keeps his hands up, and he has a good chin on him too. And that's basically all you need as a marauder. You don't need any fancy combos, fancy leg kick feints and stuff like that. Oh, but what about the outside foot battle? Listen, that stuff doesn't matter if you don't believe in it. It's like BJJ. But anyways, the real meat and potatoes behind his style is the fact that he can keep up a crazy pace for the entire fight. I don't think I've ever seen anyone impose his will like him. And I think he's just the perfect example of a marauder. He's the furthest thing from a technical maestro on the feet, but he just keeps going forward, throws a big meaty hook, puts you up against the cage, and mauls you with elbows and knees. And honestly, his nickname should be the Mauler. Shout out to Alexander Gustafsson, who's the original Mauler. But I think it's time for Andreas Gustafsson to succeed that name. But, you know, I understand Bane is more original and stuff like that. But let's move on to the fight with Rinat Fakhritonov. And I'm picking Andreas Gustafsson, and it's not only because he's Swedish and he looks like he would pull up to your village in a big Viking ship if you were an Anglo-Saxon back in 1000 AD, although that is part of it. But it is quite a close fight in my opinion. Rinat is a good grappler and he could cause some problems in that area if he is able to get Andreas to the ground. However, I just think that would be very hard because Andreas is just extremely strong. He has a very strong background in Greco-Roman wrestling, and I think he will be able to defend the takedowns here. And I honestly think this fight is gonna take place mainly on the feet and in the clinch, and in the clinch specifically, Andreas Gustafsson is just a lot better in my opinion. He's able to deal a ton of damage and he's constantly trying to hurt you, and at the same time he's able to control you with his insane strength. Now I know Rinat is also good in the clinch, but he doesn't have that crazy pace that Andreas Gustafsson has. And I think Andreas Gustafsson is going to force Rinat to work a lot in the clinch, which is going to be very taxing on Rinat's cardio. And meanwhile, we know Andreas is able to keep up that crazy pace for 3 rounds straight. And when it comes to the striking, on a pure technical level, Rinat is probably better. However, he's still very mid. And against the Marauder, the Marauder, your technique doesn't matter. I'm joking, it obviously does play a role, but I would say that Rinat's stand-up is still at such a low level that he could get pieced up on the feet by a brawler like Andreas, who literally just sprints into overhands and hooks. And Andreas also got a pretty clear power advantage on the feet, so I will be going with Andreas Gustafsson here. I think this fight is going to be a real scrap, and Andreas is going to be the one pushing the pace as always, living and dying by the Marauder code, defending takedowns and beating up Rinat in the clinch. And I think Rinat is going to slow down significantly somewhere in the second round, and Andreas is gonna be taking over completely by the third. So I'm going with Andreas Gustafsson by decision. Now, how far do I think Andreas Gustafsson gets in the UFC? I think he can make the rankings at least. I think Kevin Holland will lose, for example, and I see him beating Leon Edwards as well. But at the same time, I see him losing to other guys in the division like Usman or Shavkat. So I'd say he at least get ranked, and at best he breaks into the top 5. I have a hard time seeing him become champion because he's 34. But you know, it's not impossible. If he gets a very favorable matchup stylistically, he could get it done. Now that said, I'm gonna share a little story with y'all. Because me and Andreas Gustafsson, we go way back, alright? Back to the good old Greco-Roman days. And basically, we were brought in to help Hamza prepare for the Paulo Costa fight at the time, which later went on to be the Kamaru Usman fight. And I was brought in as a striker, and Andreas Gustafsson, of course, as a grappler. So we're there at the All-Star Gym in Stockholm, and before warming up, I'm chopping it up with Alexander Demola Gustafsson, Ilir Latifi, and Guram, you know, some of my heroes. And then it's time for sparring, and I'm going first with Hamzat, and immediately Hamzat shoots for the legs, and I managed to get underhooks and sprawl, of course, because of my insane Greco-Roman wrestling, and I'm up on the feet again. And the coach starts yelling to Hamzat, "Keep it standing, we want to work on your striking." And he says, "Okay, brother." And I can tell he's a little frustrated because he didn't get the takedown, but we continue going back and forth on the feet. And he's going a little harder, you know, and I'm taking it easy. I'm letting him work because he has a fight booked and I don't want to injure him before the fight. But I'm jabbing and teeping, strict landing him up, and basically I outstruck him like it isn't a big deal or anything, okay? Okay. But now it's Andreas' turn, and the bell rings, and next thing you know, Andreas Gustafsson sprints into a real Viking takedown. And what I mean by that is like, it wasn't the wrestling takedown. Like, if you imagine Vikings, how they would do in hand-to-hand combat, like they would just sprint and collide at full force with their opponent in order to knock them off balance. It was kind of like that, you know. But anyways, Hamza gets knocked back into the cage, and he lets out the sus makacha, brother. And Andreas just pounces on him, and he's teeing off on him in the clinch. And he actually gets the body lock on Hamzat, and he starts kneeing him in the thigh. And Guram starts shouting, how you let this guy do this to you? This is your specialty, brother. Because the body lock and knees to the thigh, that's the Caucasus special. But Hamzat starts yelling time out, and he's saying Andreas cheated or fouled him or something weird like that. And he's like, "Brother, this is not even a real takedown, brother." And Hamzat starts talking to his coach, and they actually tell us we're done for today. But anyways, we go back home, we get some rest, and next day we come back in order to get some more work in. But Hamzat is nowhere to be seen, and nobody knows where he is, and that's very unusual because he's known for spending the whole day at the gym. And we're waiting around, and I pull out my phone, and I see Hamzat left Sweden for the United Arab Emirates. So what I'm basically saying is, we are the reason Hamzat left Sweden. We will beat Renat Fakhritonov and we will become UFC champion. Now that said, I think that's it for today, guys. Check out my last video where I talked about who beats Hamza Chimaev. I didn't include myself, of course, because I saved it for this video. But anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Am I just an Andreas Gustafsson glazer? Or do you agree with me when I say he's the best Marauder in the UFC? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And also don't forget to send this to every Swedish person you know. And I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye!